Hi, welcome everybody. I see people coming into the chat now. Before we get started today, just take some time to look at the different artworks that you see here on the slide. In the chat, while you're waiting, just write which ones are your favorite and which ones you think that you might want to wear yourself. We'll wait a few minutes for other people to join us. But while we do that, I'm going to go over some of the rules for today's session. If you have any questions or things that you want to add, you can just put that into the chat or the Q&A, and I'll be moderating that today. And then the other thing that you should check for is to make sure that you have your materials here and ready. You feel free to start working on them, drawing some of the details that you like of the artworks as you go through today. And feel free to get up, stretch, look around. You're in the comfort of your own home. So we're just looking forward to having you here today. So I do see that we have some people who have written some things in the chat. There were some people who are really interested in the boots. Would anyone like to share a little bit about the boots? They said that they liked the gold toes and the cactuses. Could someone share a little bit about the boots for our visitors?
Well, those are a really interesting piece. They're actually made out of porcelain. So we included them because they look like boots, which can be a form of wearable art. You can actually wear them. They're made out of ceramics. And they're called cowboy boots, and they were made in 1980 by the artist named William Willamy.
Thank you, that's great. We also have another person who's really interested in the coat and the patterns that are on that coat in the middle.
I do love that coat. It's a very cool coat. So that is quilted, and it's called a men's quilted coat by the artist Jeff Gardner, who's a fashion designer and artist who is really dedicated to using sustainable materials and to making sustainable fashion more popular. Awesome. I love that ruffle on the top. It looks very cozy.
Lots and lots of fun. Well, thank you everyone for joining, and we're going to get started. So let's move to our next slide. You today have joined our Art and Me Preservation Family Workshop. We're coming to you from the National Museum of Asian Art, the Freer and Sackler Galleries, as well as the Smithsonian American Art Museum's Lunder Conservation Center. So our two Smithsonian museums have come together for this program here today. So now we're going to do a little bit of introductions. I'm Matthew Lesnowski. I'm the Audience Engagement Analyst Specialist at the Freer and Sackler. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ellen Chase, who's going to introduce herself.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ellen Chase, and I am the Objects Conservator at the Freer and Sackler. And that means that I take care of all the three-dimensional objects, anything not flat, in our collection. And so next, Leah is going to tell you, she's also an Objects Conservator, but not at the Freer and Sackler.
That's right. Hi, everybody. My name is Leah Bright, and as Ellen said, I'm also an Objects Conservator, but I work at the Lunder Conservation Center at the Smithsonian American Art Museum, just like my colleague, Laura.
Hi, I'm Laura Hoffman, and I'm the Lunder Conservation Center Program Manager, so I work very closely with Leah and the other conservators, and we're a visible art lab, so I handle all of the out-facing programs for conservation. And you might hear us refer to the Smithsonian Art Museum as SAM for short, and it also includes the Renwick Gallery, which is our Museum of Craft, and several of the artworks that you just saw in the slide before.
Awesome. We'll go to our next slide. So now we're going to turn it over to Ellen, and she's going to explain a little bit more about what a conservator is and does.
Okay, so just like Leah and I were saying earlier, we are both conservators. So have any of you heard the word conservator before? Do you know what a conservator is?
So I see some people writing in the chat. It looks like someone has been here before and says that it's like an art doctor.
Yes, that's right. Very good. Oh, there's Laura's shirt. So that's right. So what a conservator does, our main job is to take care of and preserve art and historical objects and anything that's part of our cultural heritage, part of our culture, and try and preserve it for the future so that when you get older and when you have grandchildren, that pieces are still there. So we take care of them the same way a doctor takes care of a person, right? So we want to make sure that they stay healthy, and if they get sick, then we try and make sure that they get better and we fix them. So if you look in this slide, tell me what you notice. Do you see anything in there that looks a little bit different or a little bit special? Take a look at what she's doing and maybe how she's doing it. Is there anything she's wearing that looks unusual to you?
I see some typing. Someone said she's wearing purple gloves.
Yes, you are right. And so I have my own purple gloves here. And so why do you think we might wear gloves? What does anybody think?
Okay, so William says that oils on hands.
Very good, yes. So even though we wash our hands all the time, sorry, excuse me, everybody has oil on their fingers that can hurt artwork. So we wear the gloves to protect the art from the oils on our hands, but we also wear the gloves to protect our hands. Sometimes we use materials that are not so safe for people. And then another thing that she's not wearing, but I'm wearing, tell me if any of you recognize what this is that I'm wearing right now. Does it look familiar to you?
Okay, I see someone writing, and we got 3 people who said lab coat.
Right, it's a lab coat. And so just like a doctor wears a lab coat, I wear a lab coat. And again, just like with the gloves, it's to protect the artworks. Like I'm wearing a fuzzy sweater, I don't want to leave little bits of my sweater on the artwork. But it's also to protect me if we're working with materials that are not so safe. And because sometimes I'm not so neat, you can see I have paint on my sleeves. So when I'm working with paint, sometimes I like to wear this so that I don't get it on my clothing. So tell me, there's one other thing in the picture that the conservator is working with that's something sort of unusual or a little different that might help her understand what she's looking at. Does anybody notice what she's using to help her see the art object?
Let's see. Someone says that she might have special glasses.
Well, it's kind of like that. In the picture, she's actually using a microscope. And one of the reasons she's using that is we always look really closely at things. One of the most important parts about conservation, or when you're, same as when you're a doctor, when you go, they examine you to make sure that you're okay and understand what's happening. And we do the same thing with art. So sometimes we use big microscopes like that, and then sometimes we use more portable things like this, and it just helps us look a little more closely so that we can understand what we're looking at and understand the art objects. And then now we're going to start talking a little bit about what we're going to look at today, which is the wearable art. Oh, but first I'm going to show you my desk. So we'll talk more about the different kinds of tools and different materials that we use while you guys are doing your activity, but this is just a quick idea, sort of the kinds of different things that we might use to work on an art object. So how do you guys think you can wear art? What do you think that means? We were talking about it a little bit at the very beginning, but what do you think is a way, if you look at the picture on the right, that's in our collection. That's a painting of a woman from China. And you can see sort of, what do you notice about her that you also notice about the other pieces, which are also in our collection, in our objects?
Wearing nice clothes.
Right, so she is wearing nice clothes, you're right. But if you also look at the pieces on the left, you can see those are very similar, right? So in our collection, we have images of people wearing wearable art, and then we also have the wearable art itself. But what do you notice? Does it look like just regular clothing? Do you think my sneakers are wearable art, or are they just something that I wear?
It looks like someone wrote the word fancy. Yeah.
They're not always fancy, but when we collect something as art, then it's going to be more than just a t-shirt. There's got to be some sort of either special artwork, the way it's made, or maybe what it means, or maybe the kind of materials that are used. There are different things about it that will make it special more than just my sneakers. And so Leah is going to tell you a little bit about some other pieces in the Smithsonian that are really unusual, that are wearable art.
Okay, so this is one of my favorite pieces that's in the Renwick collection that Laura mentioned. So take a good look, and what do you see any familiar shapes? And how do you think this would be worn? Where would you wear it on the body? It's pretty unique and kind of special, but there's some familiar shapes and pictures going on.
So I'm seeing a few people write bracelets.
Yes, excellent. And there you go. You guys are spot on. This is a bracelet. This is specifically called Curtains and Balcony Bracelet by the artist Joshua DeMonte. And he makes artwork, particularly jewelry, so wearable art that he makes on a 3D printer. So just the same kind of printer that you would print out your homework or maybe a picture, but it prints with kind of a special kind of plastic. So this is made out of plastic. As you can see, it looks like a window and some curtains. And so you can see how different it looks on a person's body. And then on the right, it's on display at the museum. And so once a piece of wearable art comes into the museum, it's not worn anymore because that could cause damage, it could get dirty or broken, and we want to make sure that the artworks are preserved for as long as possible. So you can see that from this piece, wearable art can be really anything that you want. So when you think about this, when you make your own piece, just use your imagination and make whatever you want. And we have another example that's also in the American Art Museum collection, but it's used with really different materials. This is another really pretty piece called Africa by the Baltimore artist Joyce Scott. And what do you see in this one? How is it different from the other piece? What do you think it's made out of? It's definitely very different. Where do you think this one would be worn? Sorry, that was a lot of questions.
Yeah, you're good. We're getting a variety of responses. So the first one that came in said that they were beads potentially, or either like, it looks like it could be sewn too, someone thought. They weren't sure if it was beads or sewn together, like crochet.
That is a very astute observation. It's kind of both. It is made out of beads. They're really tiny glass beads. And Joyce uses a technique that is kind of like sewing, where she uses and weaves these beads together to make designs. It's almost like she's drawing or painting, but with beads. So she uses beads, which is a pretty traditional part of jewelry making, and she makes these really unique and special kinds of wearable art. And today we're actually going to be using beads in our activity. And Ellen is going to show how beads are used in other ways in collections at the Freer and Sackler.
Sorry about that. So these are 3 different pieces in our collection. And take a minute and take a look at them and see what sorts of things you notice. What do you see when you look at these artworks? Especially look at how you think the beads are held together. What makes them into one piece?
Someone says they really like the birds or swans on the right.
And so you can see that that's not really a bead, that part, but see how there's a bead on top? That's the, this is a special box. It's a little medicine box. And so you could wear that and carry it with you so you had your medicine, but that bead on the top is one way that you could use beads, and it's got a thick cord. And then the one in the middle, that necklace, if you look at it, that's actually lots of really thin cotton threads that have been put together to make another thick cord. And then if you look at the one all the way over to the left, that's actually a gold wire. So you can use lots of different things to string beads. And during your activity today, it's the same idea. You could use lots of different things to string beads on in your activity, when you make your own. And then Laura, can you go to the next one, please? So take a look here. These are all different kinds of beads that we have in the Freer and Sackler collections. And they look really different, right? There are lots of different things to notice about them. So take a look and tell me what kinds of things you're seeing. What do you notice? What do you see when you look at all these different beads?
Someone says that the 2 gold ones together almost look like acorns.
They do a little bit, you're right. But those are made out of metal, and those are also quite little. Sometimes it's hard to tell in these pictures. They're all different sizes. And as you can see, they come in lots of different shapes. And what else is different about them? Do they all look the same in terms of their color?
No. So someone says the blue ones really stick out, like the one in the middle, and then the horse.
And then the horse, right? And then there's those are both bright blue, and then some of them are sort of light brown. They come in all different colors, and they're made out of all different kinds of things. Do you guys think you can maybe take a close look and see if you can figure out what any of them are made out of?
Yep. Someone says the blue one looks like it's made of glass.
Yes, you're right. It is. That's exactly what that is. And then if you look to some of the other ones, does anyone have any ideas what some of the other material might be?
People like the animal beads.
Yeah. So the little blue one, the blue one down on the bottom, that animal is made out of glass. And then the one way over on the left, the black one, we're not totally sure what that's made out of, but it might be made out of something called jet, which is actually compressed carbon.
And then another question, are any of them made out of brass?
So none of them are made out of brass, but those two, the two little ones in between the ram and the blue one are made out of gold. And then I see that someone wanted to know if they make beads out of bone, and yes, they do. If you look at that one on the right, that's a bead that's made out of bone. So they're beads that are made out of ceramics, beads that are made out of glass, beads that are made out of bone, beads that are made out of organic jet. There are beads that are made out of stone, all on this one slide. So it gives you an idea. We have a really wide range of things to take care of, even just from our beaded art. And so if you go to the next slide, please, Laura. So these are some other examples in our collection and things to think about what might happen, when we're for art, for beaded art, what are some of the things that might happen? What are some things we need to worry about or we might take care of? So what do you guys notice about any of these pictures? Is there anything you think that might be a problem or something that conservators would have to worry about? Yeah, right. So some of the beads are broken, and then you can see, you can also see that the necklaces, the stringing broke. And so that's something we have to worry about in terms of when we take care of the art, we want to make sure to handle it really carefully and make sure we don't break anything. And then we also, sometimes if something does break, sometimes things get old and really fragile and something happens, like in this case, and then we have to worry about how to put it back together again. And then yep, they might turn color, that's true too, depending on what the bead's made out of, very good. And so we also worry about how much light they're exposed to, all kinds of different things to make sure to take care of them. And so I'm going to talk about one specific piece quickly, and then you guys are going to get to make your art. So this is a piece in our collection. It is Indian, and it would be worn by men on their 60th and 80th birthdays as part of the ritual and celebration. And it's made out of gold and jewels, and you can see these brown beads. And what do you think the brown beads might be? Does that look like something any of you guys might recognize? You're muted, Matthew, sorry.
Someone thought it might be a fruit or a nut.
Yeah, right. So these are a special kind of seed, and they have an important significance, right? Rudrashka. Oh, I just said that wrong. I'm sorry. And so these are strung on a silver wire, and the beads themselves are fragile, and they're sensitive to light, and they're sensitive to handling. And the wire itself is sort of strong, but the pendant, the metal part is very heavy. So whenever we exhibited this and whenever we handle it, we have to be really careful about not pulling on the wire and also making sure that the beads don't get damaged because there's heavy stuff in between. So if you come, once the museum is back open again, if you come and look, it's in the galleries, and you can see we have a very special way of displaying it so that we're not putting any pressure or stress on the beads or the wire. And I think now we're gonna go to the activity, and Laura's going to tell you all about what you guys are going to be doing.
All right, so I hope you guys all got your materials ready. If not, just looking at this, I'm gonna stop the share and we're gonna start to make some art together. So gather your beads, gather your string. Sometimes I like to use tape, so you might want a piece of tape with that. So let's turn this back so that you can see us all. I have here this leather cord that I have, and I actually am tying one end so that the beads will stay. And then on the other end, I'm going to take a piece of tape and I'm going to put this over it, and it's kind of going to act almost like a needle and thread, where it just gives it a little easier tip to go on, because I can make it really tight up top. So I've got my knot at the end and then my thing here, and then because we're all art doctors here, I got some tools. If I was using really, really small tools, often conservators will use different types of tweezers. I don't actually need them, but I think it's sometimes a little fun. So here's my bead here. Yes, and you can see Ellen has hers as well. She's actually in the lab. And I'm just going to thread it on. It's a little hard to thread it on with the tweezers. And I'm gonna decide, to figure out how many I want on here. So actually I made the tape a little tight. I have to take off the tape. But sometimes with art doctors, they have to figure out the correct process, so they'll do a lot of testing ahead of time. And with this, I don't think the tape is as helpful with the leather cord, because the leather cord is pretty solid on its own. But I also pulled out a ribbon, and I feel like with a ribbon, it might be more helpful. I'm curious for you guys in the chat if you want to share which materials you decided to use, because I'm using slightly more traditional ones, but then I also found this fun peacock feather that I thought I could tie around here. And sometimes what you can do is have them be loose. Other times you can tie a knot, so that it'll stay in place. I have some different examples. I love beads and I love doing different ones. So I have lots of different examples. Here is a necklace that I have, which is kind of fun because they slide, but they do have knots all across, and it's really long, so I can layer it. Then I have this other fun one that has all different types. Not as beautiful as the ones we just saw, but I also thought it'd be fun. I tried to wear as much wearable art that I could, so I know you do as well, Leah, so maybe we could show. We both have on some really cool leather necklaces. And I just love the stories that come from it. So this was given to me by my sister when she was traveling. My earrings are from my parents. These rings, these two rings, I actually made at a silver making workshop for art doctors in order to better understand metal making process. And then this ring here was made by our Lunder Conservation Fellows in Metals. Not only is she a talented conservator, but she also makes her own jewelry and makes all of her own metals, and she's uses mythology as her inspiration. So I just love that piece. And then I even have on my, it's sometimes fun to wear something on your lab coat as well. So on here, I have a brooch that was my grandmother's. What about you, Leah?
Well, I know I have so much jewelry. It was hard to decide what to wear today, but I decided on my brightly colored leather necklace here that I actually bought. I went on a trip to Cuba to visit with other art conservators there, and so that's where I bought that. And my earrings are actually made out of gourds. They're little pieces of dried gourd, and I got these in Mexico.
But you're not gonna eat the gourd later.
I know, maybe if I get really, really hungry, but I don't think it would be very good. It's really the outside hard part of a gourd. So.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the gourd, because some of the people that wrote in, some of the things that they are using are penne pasta to string,
nice.
As well as olives. So it seems like food is an inspiration for a few of our people, for their wearable art.
It reminds me in Oktoberfest, that German festival where they wear necklaces that are made of pretzels and then they eat them on their way. So, you know, for penne pasta might stay longer if you treat it. The olives might be just a delicious snack for later today that you can wear around.
Laura, should I show what I made?
Yes, if you guys have other examples, I think this would be a great time to show them.
So I was inspired by this activity and decided to make another necklace. It might be kind of hard to see.
Yeah, will you pull it up closer to the camera?
Whoa, here we go.
Yeah.
I used some elastic that I had for making face masks, and I had some big wooden beads, and then I decided to tie some ribbon to make these kind of springy parts. And then these blue beads are made out of coils of magazine strips. So I cut up magazine pages and made them into beads.
And I know, Ellen, you have some examples. So for your examples, for the last couple minutes, maybe we can pull up, I'm gonna go and share my screen and we can do the Art Doctor conservation report with it.
That sounds perfect.
Okay, great. Give me 1 second here. Okay.
Okay, so remember how I said earlier, as conservators, we always look at things very closely to understand how things are made and how they might need to be taken care of. So this is just an example for you guys to see what we do, and we're going to do it together and work on some of the types of things that we would look at. And so I'm going to show you that necklace in the picture is actually a necklace that I made. And so once you guys finish your necklaces, you can use the same Art Doctor conservation report to look at your necklaces, but we're just going to quickly show you how to do one now. You can do it with me, either looking at your own piece if you're ready, or you can give me suggestions and help me write my report. So quickly, if you look at the report, the first question is the art doctor or conservator's name. So I'm the conservator, so I'm going to use my name, which is Ellen. And then art's name. Sometimes in the museum we have numbers to be able to tell the art apart, but sometimes we also have the name of it so we can understand. So in this case, I think I'm going to call it the paper towel necklace because these beads, these are all made from, I cut them from paper towel tubes. And so then the first part that we're going to look at as we look at carefully is what 3 words best describe your artwork. So maybe if you guys can look at the picture, or you can look at it as I'm holding it here, what do you think, what are some good ways to describe my wearable art that I made? Anybody have any ideas? So the first thing that I would say, I might say there are 5 beads so that I would know. So if I came back later to look and I only saw 4 beads, I would say, what happened, right? So sometimes our report, I see that Grace raised her hand. I don't know, can we do it that way, or does she need to type in the chat? Yeah, go ahead and type in the chat, Grace. And so then another thing that I might say is that it's on a black cord, right? And so that's another way to describe it. Can you guys think of anything else to help describe this necklace?
Someone said colors.
Very good, right. So they're different colors. So what I would probably do is say which colors so that I would know, because sometimes someone was talking earlier about changing colors, right? So I would want to know, so we always take pictures as part of our examination, and then we also would write it down so we could compare it later and understand what kind of condition it's in. So the next thing is circle which emoji best describes how you felt making the art. And I don't know about you guys, but I had a great time making this. So I would definitely circle the smiley emoji. And then the last part of the report is what can you do to take care of your art? And so it's similar. I mean, this is a little different because I just made it and it's not a museum object. But if I were worried about it, because it's made out of cardboard, I would want to maybe not get it wet, right? And so what are some other things we talked about that I might be able to do to help take care of this so that it doesn't break and that I can keep it for a long time? Anybody have any ideas?
I see some typing. And okay, someone said be careful.
Yes, exactly. That's the most important thing always. So be careful, like don't, I'm doing this, but don't do that. You would be careful, hold it with 2 hands so that it's not putting any pressure on the string. I would probably really, if I were a real object, I wouldn't be holding it in my hands at all. I would carry it on a tray so that it would be supported. And I would probably keep it out of the light so the colors don't fade too much. Yep, Mary, right. Put it in a box and put it out of the sun in a safe spot. That's perfect. So that would be the great thing. That was what I would write. And then on the last thing in your report is to sketch the artwork that you created so you can know what it looks like. So once you guys are finished with your projects, you can do the very same thing.
All right, thank you, Ellen. So as we're about to wrap up here, we would love to see the pictures of your wearable art. Please email them to me at the email that I sent to you, and we'll add it to our learning lab. And I have the link for the learning lab right here that I'll put in the chat. Also, we are planning our next Art and Me program for November, and we would love, love, love to hear feedback about when we should offer these. So we really want to hear from you. So please leave all of your open and honest feedback. We want to offer these throughout the year online, and we really want to make sure they're at times and the content that you want. A big thank you to Matthew, Ellen, and Leah. It's so much fun learning about our wearable art today, and you all were wonderful participants. Thank you so much.